Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today it's a continuation of the Halloween series with a spooky skeleton DIYs video. So all about different skeletons from the Dollar Tree, bones and skulls. And I'm super excited to show you how I took this basic Dollarama skeleton and totally zombified it into something way spookier. So I picked up this skeleton for around $4, which was such a great deal for the size. And today we're giving him a seriously creepy makeover. So you can think charred flesh, rotting skin, and full-on undead vibes. So to start, I'm using some saran wrap, just the kind that you find at your grocery store, dollar store, wherever. And I'm wrapping a thin layer all around his head, body, arms, and legs. So you don't need to do it too thick, just enough to cover his form. Then, once I complete that, I am taking my heat gun and gently melting the not cellophane, I keep on calling it cellophane, but it's saran wrap, onto the skeleton. You could potentially use a hair dryer, but I find that the heat gun gives a much better melted burnt effect because it's a little bit stronger. And the heat basically fuses the wrap to the skeleton and then even gives it this brownish scorch look that's perfect for that decayed flesh vibe that I'm going for. And it does take a little bit of time, but it is completely and totally worth it once you see everything come together. So like I said, just take your time, make sure you open up some windows and get some ventilation in because this does smell in the off gases from the saran wrap. I don't know if they're super healthy to breathe in, so make sure you have a well ventilated area that you're doing this in, and don't push the heat gun too close so you don't cause a fire or anything like that. And once you've done all that and he is fully melted and creepy, I then moved on to adding texture to him. So for the texture, I mixed some Mod Podge with water and I soaked up a piece of paper towel in it. Then I tore up the pieces of the paper towel into little bits, and I applied them in random spots on his body. So his chest, arms, his head, and wherever I wanted to give that peeled skin or muscly look. There isn't a real pattern here. You just play around with it until you like what you see. And then you let that fully dry in before you move on. Now come the finishing touches, which is the paint. And I start by lightly spraying parts of him, actually all of him, with a brown outdoor spray paint. But again, I don't do like a full-on caked coverage so he looks like he is all brown. I do it just so it kind of looks like there's a little bit more color to him, as you can see. And some of the darker spots are because of the saran wrap getting scorched. And remember to not neglect the back of him because his back also needs to have this as well. If you don't have brown spray paint, you could also do a light layer of black spray paint and then do a little bit of brown over top. But again, do a really light layer, like almost not full coverage, so that way it gives you this effect. Then I go in with some red acrylic paint and I'm just using a dry brushing technique. So I use a paper towel, which I kind of squish together so that way I get some of the paint off, and I just dab it on in random places like the chest, his eyes, and his face. And this will give it a fleshy, kind of bloody effect without looking too painted on. So you can totally add other colors too, like greens or blacks, to make it more undead. Now, once you get the color that you're looking for and the everything is all said and done, you can seal him with a clear varnish spray for extra protection if you want to keep him outside. I didn't bother with varnish and he still had it pretty well outside through some bits, although some bits can fall off over time. So just reattach them with some hot glue or melt them back on with your heat gun. So not a big deal. But again, if you want to have like a full effect, you can do a spray glue on top and then a varnish on top. And that's basically all there is to it. It's a super easy, budget-friendly zombie skeleton makeover that's perfect for your front porch, or if you have a graveyard display or a haunted house setup. I love how he turned out. He's spooky, he's gory, and a little gross in the best Halloween kind of way. Project. So this is perfect for adding spooky vibes to your either home indoor decor or your outdoor decor. So for this project, you're going to need 3 plastic skulls. So I picked mine up from the Dollar Tree, and you'll want to remove the backs of them. So to do that safely, I used a heat gun to soften up the plastic, then poked a hole and carefully cut around the back. Just be very careful, the plastic and your knife can be sharp. Now you also want to add a little bit of a hole to the top of your skull, so maybe do that before you cut the back off, because that's where you're going to need those zip ties. So next, after you've done the cutting, you're going to take a tiki torch. So this one we hadn't used in years, so I decided to upcycle it. So where you made the holes in the tops of the skulls, thread through zip ties and attach the skulls around the basket area of the torch. So depending on the size of your skulls and the torch, you may need to use 4 instead of 3. Keep adding the skulls until the torch is mostly covered. So I didn't use the actual flame part of the tiki torch, so no fire for this one. Instead, I recommend popping in a battery operated LED candle, or even better, a Dollar Tree solar light. It'll glow nicely at night and keep things safe. You'll just have to remove the base part of the solar light. So once your skulls are attached, you might notice some gaps or areas that look a little bit unfinished. So that's where deer moss comes in. I used a hot glue gun to fill in the empty spaces and hide the edges of the skulls and brown parts of the tiki torch. And to finish it off, I also glued down some of the skulls at the bottom where they were sticking out a bit too much. You can use a hot glue gun or even another zip tie if you prefer. And once you've attached your deer moss, then you're going to go ahead and use one of those creepy cloths from the Dollar Tree or any kind of black meshy cloth that you have and just wrap it around the skull a little bit too, and it'll just give it that extra look. And that is it. Super simple, super spooky, and perfect for Halloween. So I'm creating some spooky Halloween decor using these skulls from the Dollar Tree. And I'm starting with 3 skulls, actually 6 skulls, but I'll just show you how I made one of the sets because I don't think you need to watch me make 2 of the same things. But so I bought them from the Dollar Tree, and what I need to do is melt the top a little bit and the bottom so that I can make a hole in the skull. Now you obviously don't have to do this. I just did this because it made the cutting part easier. You could also drill a hole just to start it, but I was afraid that I would crack the skull or something like that. So this worked okay. Just don't melt it too much. The parts where I melted it too much became problematic because they became quite sharp. They wound up hardening really fast, so it made the edges sharp. So just don't melt it too much, just enough to make it a little bit softer. Now, The container that you make this in is totally up to you. I have these cast iron urns out front, so I'm just going to be popping these guys in here because I know they won't fly away and I can wedge them in here. So for this, I'm just using a packaging kind of styrofoam thing that I had left over. You can obviously use even, now I'm not going to remember the word, it'll come to me, but for planting, like the foam, the floral foam for planting, whatever you want, you can kind of shove in there. If you don't have cast iron urns, you could always do a heavier pot. You could do them in the ground. In the ground, it might be, actually, you could do them in the ground too. It's up to you what you do them in. Like I said, this worked for me, so I just had to measure my broomstick to see how deep it had to go before I started creating my little skeleton heads. Now wedging the heads through, again, as long as you made the holes in the right spots and you made them okay, then it's fairly easy. I found that even if you just cut an X, even if you don't melt it all the way, but you cut an X, it works better. So like I said, if you melt it all the way, it gets really hard, so it's hard to wedge the broomstick through. So you do need a broomstick or any kind of long, round stick. But I had these broomsticks left over from the Dollar Tree, so I just popped these on. And so, like I said, what I did was the ones that I just softened it and made a little X just so I could push the broomstick through. Those worked a little bit better than the ones that I melted too much, but you know, kind of it's trial and error. And then I just kind of put these heads on like all different, facing all different directions so that they kind of looked a little bit spooky. So I'm showing you there kind of what I did with the holes. And then the last one, obviously you don't want to do a hole at the top because you're just going to wedge him on top there. And then that's all there is to the skeletons. Now you will want to add, well, you don't have to, but I did. I added some deer moss to, and just some regular moss to, like in between, kind of, if you see over here, you can see a little bit of the brown. So I added in between to hide that. You could also paint your stick if you wanted to black, and then that kind of, or the color of the skeletons, and it will hide that. But I wanted to add this onto it as well. But this is your last step. Before you do that, you need a piece of cardboard or some sort of base. I've seen people use the bottom of a Dollar Tree basket, but I thought, hey, why buy something new if I can just use something old? So you could also use any kind of old planters or anything like that. But like I said, this is what I chose to use. So I just kind of cut out a piece of cardboard that was able to wedge in to the urn. And again, this size will depend on what container you use as your base. So I wanted to wedge it in there so that way it wouldn't go anywhere. And then I just kind of cut it to size how I needed it. And once it's wedged in there and ready to go and cut to size, then I went ahead and I added some Dollar Tree lights. Once those were set up the way I wanted them to be, making sure that the plug part was out away from the cardboard piece kind of hanging down, I went ahead and I added some spray foam. I just bought this spray foam on Amazon. Basically, I just bought whatever one was the cheapest. And I applied it all throughout, like all on top of this cardboard piece, just any kind of random pattern. Remember, it does grow, so as you're applying it, if you are worried about it growing, make sure you apply a little bit less. Follow the instructions on the can of how you're supposed to apply it and clean it and all that stuff. I just wanted to cover everything as much as I could so that the cardboard wouldn't be visible. And then I added my skeleton pieces. So what I did was I purchased a skeleton from the Dollar Tree, one of the smaller ones. I took it apart and then I put pieces on it. Now I wanted to show you what I did, but I had taken it apart for a previous project. So I just had the bits and pieces laying around. I also added some skulls from that skeleton, and I added the salad tongs that come in a pair of two because they had nice little hands, that were a little bit bigger. Now, if you have a bigger base, you can obviously use the bigger skulls, bigger hands, and the feet from the Dollar Tree, but because my base was smaller, I just added these guys. And you just kind of push them in, not too much into the foam, but just enough so that they kind of stick. So you just kind of like gently nudge them in so they don't fall off, because again, the foam is going to expand. While that was setting, I went ahead and I applied that deer moss and regular moss in between the skulls, just using some hot glue. And again, to cover up any of the wood showing from the broomstick. And to bring this all together, I went ahead and I spray painted the foam with a red spray paint first, just to make it look like a fire is what I wanted to do. So I lightly sprayed it with red, and then I went over top with some black and with some metallic silver. And you do this kind of the way you think it'll look like. So what I was trying to do is make it look like hot charcoal, burning charcoal kind of idea. So you don't add too much of the black or too much of the gray, which kind of mix it in. And I chose the metallic gray because it kind of gives it a look like it's burnt, freshly burnt. So again, you kind of play around with it however you want. Remember, it's just paint, so if you add too much of one thing or not enough of the other, you can always go back and redo it, so don't ever be scared of that. Once everything was set and dry, I just sprayed it with a finishing spray, just like I have a varnish sealing spray, and it's clear, and I just sprayed it so that way it would kind of seal everything, because the part where this is not covered. So if there's rain or snow, because we could get snow here in October, it's somewhat protected and the paint doesn't wash off. It shouldn't, but just in case. And then I sprayed the skulls too, just to be on the safe side. I may go back and put some red hot glue on the eyes of the skeleton, but I haven't done that yet. I wanted to see how I liked it without the red. But anyway, here's what they look like during the day and during the night. I think they turned out really, really cute. Hopefully you guys like them. This was super easy and super fun to do and inexpensive. So let me know what you think. Leave me a comment below. And if you like what you see, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can see when I do new videos. I will have another DIY after this, but here's what it looks like at night as well, so you can see the burning charcoal at night. So I really do love how it turned out. I think it looks super spooky, and my husband had put up lights around the house that we can change the color depending on what we want. So I kind of made it a reddish, orangish color so that it would match with this burning charcoal look. I think it looks so good. I absolutely love them. And I mean, if you wanted, because I wasn't sure how it would turn out, the lights that I used are from the Dollar Tree, but if you wanted maybe something more, a little bit more permanent or something like that, you could always use the solar lights or different lights depending on what you have. So on to the next one. So with this one, again, very inexpensive. I just got a palette that the neighbors were throwing out. And I started with just kind of aging it a little bit. So I just added bits of black spray paint and that gray metallic spray paint on top of it, just to make it look a little bit dirtier and a little bit more aged. And again, I just did a light spray. You don't even have to do this if you don't want to. I just wanted to. So just do a light spray. Now, this one wasn't easy DIY, but it wasn't an easy DIY. So now going back and knowing what I know now, what I would do in the future is a little bit different, but I'll show you what I did here, and I will kind of edit some parts out because there was a lot of trial and error. What I thought would work didn't work. So anyway, once you have this covered however you want, then you can go ahead and apply your skeletons, because I am making kind of like I wanted to look like the skeletons were breaking through this palette. So I'm adding some skulls from the Dollar Tree, some hands, and some feet. So before I do any of these, actually on the back of this, I add a tablecloth from the Dollar Tree. I didn't cut it down as much as I needed to. So that was my first mistake. My second mistake is I probably shouldn't have even done the tablecloth because it wasn't necessary, but live and learn. So I was adding the tablecloth because the idea was that I could somehow make the skeletons look like they were peeking out from between the boards, but the boards just weren't wide enough for me to do that. So anyway, you'll see I added this black so it looked like the ground was underneath, and that way you wouldn't see the grass or wherever you put it on. But again, now having it all done, I don't know that I would do this step, but I did add it with a stapler, and I wanted to leave it for you so you can kind of see what it looks like, and maybe you'll want to do it this way too, or you'll have a better idea, or you live in a climate where my first idea that I was thinking would work because the elements aren't as bad as they are here, or maybe you're going to have it in a spot where it's covered. So as I mentioned before, I'm using some items from the Dollar Tree. So I start with the skulls, and I also use these chains as well. And I do use some lights from the Dollar Tree. So the same idea, I use the lights like I did in the previous one. And again, I had a hard time adding these. So what I did with this, I zip tied this hand to a portion of this palette, and then I staple gunned it, the zip tie, so that it would stay. I tried to hot glue it. It didn't quite work. I tried to double tape it. It didn't quite work. I tried to wedge it in. It kept on falling out. So this worked the best. The skulls were what I had a really hard time with, so I thought I would put them underneath. It didn't work. So I wound up taking them out, but I did use double-sided tape for the lights underneath, and I added, to cover the zip ties and the tape, I added some green moss. And then I left the skulls in there thinking, okay, it would work, but as soon as I stood it up, they fell out. So then what I did was I used double-sided tape and I added the skulls this way. They kept on falling off, but I wound up securing them again with the double-sided tape. And I added a foot in there, again with double-sided tape. I'm going to put it out laying down, not standing up. I thought I would put it standing up, but because it kept on falling off, it didn't work. But what you could do, which is what I would do next time, set it up somewhere in your yard or wherever you want to, and just put underneath the skulls, put something to raise them, and underneath the palette, and have them be kind of peeking through, but they'll be raised, so they'll kind of look like their heads are peeking through. That's what I would do next time, but this is the way I made it work. I love the way it looks. It turned out really good, with the lights in there, and at night looks really cool. But again, there are some things that I would do a little bit differently if I was doing it now. It was one of those things that was supposed to be easy, but then it turned out taking me way too long and made me really frustrated. I would have loved to have used hot glue, but I know, like, with the elements, it won't work. Maybe E6000 would have worked, but I just, after trying so many different things, I got frustrated and I just left it. So here it is set up out front in my lawn. I did add a little piece of wood to angle it a bit just at the top there, so it looks like it's a little bit lifted and like bursting up from the ground.
So the next DIY is also very easy. What I'm doing is I am using one of these candle holders from the Dollar Tree, as well as a skull head from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just attaching the skull head to the candle holder. And then I will be spray painting the entire thing black. Now you can obviously do any color that you want. I just love the black and purple dark themes for Halloween. Sometimes I like the kind of like that kind of brown theme like this skull head, but for this particular thing I am spray painting it in black, and I always use this high heat spray paint because it dries really fast. I do prefer the matte one, but I just had the shiny one this time. And once I spray painted it and dried, I attached a little bit of Velcro. And I also went ahead and I spray painted just a little candle light, but one of those ones that's battery operated. I spray painted the bottom black and I attached this Velcro to the top of the skull, and then I attached the other part to the bottom of the candle. And that way I could attach the candle to the skull and turn it on and off whenever I wanted to. And it makes a cute little like candle holder, skull candle holder. I love the way it turned out. Let me know what you think. And here's the finished piece. So finally, the last DIY is another super easy one. So what I'm doing is I'm just using a little candlelight holder. Again, this is from the Dollar Tree. I had it just laying around. And one of these hands from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to be spray painting both of them again with this Trem Clad high heat paint. And I'm spray painting them black. I contemplated spray painting sorry, I'm not spray painting it black. I'm spray painting the candle holder black, and the hand I'm spray painting in this kind of bronzish color because I wanted to give it a little bit of a kind of like I didn't want it gold. I wanted it like to look like an old hand. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this is what I'm doing, kind of look like a dirty hand. So I lightly spray painted it. I didn't do like a full on 100% coverage because I did want the hand to look like it was kind of dirty. And then what I'm doing is I'm just hot gluing the hand to the little candlelight holder, and it'll make a nice little candle holder. So you can see there's a bit of a theme, a light theme to this video. And again, super duper easy, inexpensive. You could use any of the, like any kind of, oh my gosh, I can't even get my train of thought out. You could use any kind of little candle holder at the back. The base, even if you had like a little jar, you could hold that. You could use that as well. You don't have to have a candle holder that you purchased. And the Dollar Tree right now has a ton of these kind of skeleton kind of themed decorations, so you could use any of them to make candle holders, and they just make cute little decorations for Halloween. And again, you don't have to use real candles. You can use the little battery operated ones for it to be a little bit safer. So here it is, and I think it turned out really cute. You'll love this one, and very inexpensive. So I bought one of these skulls and a solar lamp from the Dollar Tree. I took the bottom part of the lamp off and I cut a hole on top of the skull. I used an X-Acto knife and some scissors to do that. And then I wound up cutting little holes into the eyes of the skull, and it looks like it has a tooth that's missing. I also cut a hole in there. I wound up using an X-Acto knife and it wasn't doing the best work, so I grabbed a big kitchen knife and I did it with that. Again, when you watch me doing this, you probably fear that I'm going to cut my hand. I really need to be more careful because I am very accident prone. And I also wound up using some pliers just to get the little bits off because I needed to be able to fit the solar lamp in there, the bottom part of it. So, I mean, it really is easy. I could have used my scoring. I remembered now as I'm talking to you guys that I have a little scoring knife thing that I could have used, and I completely forgot that I have it. And then again, I used the big knife for the eyes and the tooth, and then I let it charge in the sun a little bit, and here's what it looks like when it is all lit up and done. Super duper easy and cute and a bit spooky. I really, really like this, and so inexpensive, so easy. You could do it as a little walkway to your house outside, and it would be expensive. Thought the last one was simple. This one is even more simple. What you'll need is a skull, and I had this little pack of skulls in here. and an eyeball. So I'm just using what's left over. And you would just want to make a little hole in your eyeball and a little hole in your skull. You can either use some sort of knife for this. You could also use your glue gun and melt it down a little bit and then cut it out. Up to you. I wound up using just like a little knife to pick out a hole. And then I have these little faux votive candles, like battery operated ones. And I'm just putting these on top of those. And then I have some of the Halloween ribbon that I bought at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just wrapping it around the base of the votive candle so that they match, and that's all there is to it. So just look how cute these guys are. They're so cute, and they've got the spook factor because they have that light inside of them, and they'll just look amazing in a tier tray. So I'm back to the hay bales. I love these hay bales. I'm so excited that they came around this year. I've done so much with them for fall and now into Halloween, and I may wind up using them even for Christmas, who knows. But I am just hot gluing a whole bunch together to try and make kind of like a stack of hay like you would have at the farm. And then I will be using those skulls that you saw in the previous DIY, and I'm going to be making kind of like a skull topiary type of thing on top of these hay bales. Really easy, really fun. Now the inspiration was with pumpkins, but I've decided to do skulls, and I've done that a few times throughout this video where my inspiration was a little bit different, but it was my inspiration, and that's where I like my creativity came in. And I hot glue these together, and then I hot glue the skulls one on top of the other, and again that's all there is to this one. Again, another really easy one, not too difficult this time around, but still super cute. I did decide to add some of the bones. There was like a pack of bones at Dollar Tree that you could get, and I just added them to the hay bales just to add a little bit of detail. And since I had a bag of bones, I decided to do a stack of bones. And I mean, what's more spookier than a stack of bones on Halloween? So I'm just making kind of a random stack of bones. I'm putting 3 horizontally and then 2 vertically, and then I continue adding as I see fit. And I make my stack of bones. I actually put 3 vertically, not 2 vertically. But anyway, I just continue to do this until I get the height that I was looking for. It just like another cute thing to add to your tray. I'm always looking at different little fillers and different things that you can put in trays, and I thought this was perfect. If you think this is too simple and you're not liking the color of the bones, you could always paint them a different color to make them maybe look a little bit more realistic, but I really liked the kind of dirty, yellowy white kind of color of these bones and skulls and all that, so I left them as they are. To me, they kind of look rustic and more zombie-like, I don't know. And to go with the Hocus Pocus Broom Company, we need some brooms. So I am making brooms using some of those leftover bones. And I'm just choosing a few different sizes, and then I am using some jute rope for the bottom part of the broom, and I'm hot gluing it, and then I'm also wrapping around some jute rope at the top so it looks like, you know, it's been handmade, the broom. And that's all there is to this one. After I create those brooms, I hot glue them together so they're a stack of 3 so they don't fall over. You don't have to hot glue them, but I one is too little, I think, to have unless you have a mini tray. So I thought if I glue them together, it'll look a little bit more substantial. So here they are, and they look so cute and adorable. I love them. I am making a tray cover or like a plate cover out of this bowl from the Dollar Tree. It's just a black bowl. It has some spiders and some other Halloween themed decor engravings on it, and just one of these skulls. And I'm just hot gluing the skull to the top of the bowl, and I'm also using a creepy cloth, and that's pretty much all there is to this DIY. It's super easy, but I'll show you how I made it just in case you're wondering, well, how exactly did you make it? I also used some of the creepy hands as well, all from the Dollar Tree, so very inexpensive and very easy to make. So here it is all finished. You can use any kind of tray or plate that you want. I used a charger, a gold charger from the Dollar Tree, and I put my clementines in there. But you can obviously use anything that you'd like. You can even use a pizza pan. That works as well. So just some food for thought for you. You can use anything, or even if you have an existing plate, you could use it. I just happen to like the combination of these colors. You need 4 of these spooky skeletons, again from the Dollar Tree, some of the plastic chains that they have, and some candles, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And all you're doing is you're attaching the skeletons with a zip tie to the wreath form. Now, as you can see, the wreath form is put with the curved side up, and then I'm taking apart these skeletons, well, taking the tags off of them, and I'm stretching them out because they're kind of folded in. So I'm stretching them out. They have a wire inside, and I'm using the arms to attach the zip ties underneath the fabric, so that way you can't see it. And again, you need 4 of these, and I attached each arm, so you'll need 8 zip ties altogether. And you want to attach them so it looks like they are kind of sitting on top of the wreath, and the wreath, or like they're on the side of the wreath, so you're attaching them to the side rather than on top, so they're laying down, so it looks like they're kind of, the wreath is in the back of them, basically. Also, to tame down the lights a little bit because they're very bright LEDs, I did color them with orange Sharpie, and so they kind of are a little bit muted, not too much, but a little bit. This next DIY is using an old picture frame. You can obviously use Dollar Tree ones or anything that you have on hand. You can even use a foam board and make a little frame out of it. And some black spray paint, and I got the glossy kind as well, and then I needed a skull as well as 2 of the creepy hands and some cheesecloth. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make a ghost skeleton coming out of this picture frame holding a chain, but you could attach a lantern or anything you want to it. So I started off with spray painting it black. And while it was drying, I tried to use this knife to cut the bottom part of the creepy hand off so that I could glue it, but it wasn't really working, so I wound up breaking it off. But like I said, I did try to use the knife. You can probably use something better, but it was just as easy to break it, so that's what I did. Then I used some Mod Podge. And I dipped my cheesecloth into the Mod Podge. You can dilute it a little bit so you don't use as much, but I didn't dilute it at all. I have lots of Mod Podge, so I just used it. And I just made sure that the whole cheesecloth was soaked in it and covered, so I just kind of mushed it around a little bit. And then I hot glued all of my pieces to the picture frame and then put this cloth right over top. You're going to see it in the next part. And for the cheesecloth, I just dabbed a little bit of hot glue into different places just to keep it on. It'll harden nice over top. And inside, once it hardened, I put just little twinkle lights from the Dollar Tree, battery operated ones, to give this some light. But here I have pictures of with lights and without for you to have a peek at. So here they are. Using one of these thrifted trays, but you can use those silver trays that they have at the Dollar Tree as well. But this one I had on hand, so I used this one, and I roughed it up a little bit by sanding it just roughly and then painting it with a mixture of some green, black, and silver paint. And again, I just kind of dabbed everything on with a paper towel. Actually, I used a wet wipe, but it was dry, so paper towel is what would work. So once I was happy with the coverage, I put this doll head on. Now this doll head is from the Dollar Tree again. It was just a random doll head that they had, so it was perfect for what I needed. I covered her eyes and then I spray painted her green and her hair black. Now for her body, I got one of those skeletons from the Dollar Tree again, the hanging ones, and I spray painted that green as well. And I only actually just used the arms and the chest from that skeleton. I removed the legs, and that was easy to do. And I did cut her hair off after I painted. I should have done it before, but I did it after because I thought I could use it, but then it wasn't sticking on properly, so I did not. And I hot glued her head to the tray. And then I added a witch's hat to her head. The witch's hat was just from like a chair cover or something that I had left over. It had like a little mini hat, but Dollar Tree does have those witch's hats, those mini witch's hats that you can get. So just pick up one of those, or if there's like a dog costume, Halloween dog costume, it'll probably have a witch's hat in there too. And for her cape, I just had one of those shawls that they have from the Dollar Tree, and it's a Halloween theme, so it has spider webs. So I got one of those and I just cut it to cover the skeleton body. And I did paint her nails as well. I painted them black. I didn't sew the cape or anything like that. I just kind of measured how much I thought I needed and roughly cut it and then wrapped it around her and hot glued it. So very easy because I want it to be kind of like sitting over top of her like a cape. If you are super handy and want to sew something, or if you find a dress, a witch's costume or something for a doll, you by all means can do this and use this. I did not see anything. Actually, to be honest with you, I didn't really look, but I did look for hats, and I didn't look for hats because I had a hat at home, but I did happen to see hats when I was there. So when I removed the tape from her eyes, I realized that her eyes were a little bit painted green. Some of it was left with the other color of her body, so I painted some black over top of them, and I kind of made her look a little bit meaner. Although she could still look meaner. Looking back at her now, I think maybe like with her nose I could have done something, but it's okay for now. My kids aren't scared of her, which is good too. Now I was looking for some sort of crystal ball. I didn't find one, but I did find this. It's like one of those plastic snow globe things, but it's got like kind of a crystal ball cover on it, like color on it. So I hot glued that to the bottom of her body, and I kind of hot glued her hand so it looks like she's holding it. And then I put some command strips at the back and I hung her up on a wall. So here she is all finished with her nails painted, and I did put a little tea light into because it unscrews into this crystal ball at the bottom, so you can see her lit up. It's hard to see because of the lighting, but hopefully you can see. Well, I think she turned out really nice.